When it comes to filmmaking, everyone always says that the story is the most important part. Story is king, as they say. But are they right? Let's find out. Hello, my name's Alexander Manelli. I'm a documentary filmmaker based in Northeast Pennsylvania near Scranton. And today, I want to talk to you about how I made a feature-length documentary all by myself about this place. With no budget, no crew, just a laptop and a C100 Mark II. The film is At the Drive-in, a documentary that I shot in 2016. And I know this process of making a film by yourself works because I did it 3 more times after this. And I will do it again. So I will share everything I used, from gear to software, how I did it, what I learned, and how you could do the same thing yourself on one of your own films. So who cares about my documentary about a drive-in? Why do a video about how I made it? Well, it did find an audience. Filmmaker Scott Derrickson, who directed Marvel's Doctor Strange movie, The Black Phone, Sinister, he put At the Drive-in on his list of 100 greatest documentaries of all time on Letterboxd. It actually won Best Local Feature at the Philadelphia Film Festival in 2017. So I do have a theory and some thoughts as to why this micro-budget little documentary found an audience, but I'll get to that later. And it has to do with a very controversial opinion from one of the most famous filmmakers of all time.
Could anybody help me to find somebody who would write a film, direct a film, do the choreography, write the music?
How on earth do you manage to do it? I think that's a question that would fascinate all of us. Now, we know that your new film is done, as in that sense, almost a one-man job. Now, how does one go about it? I mean, it must be a tremendous, overwhelming task.
This is a piece of advice that I always give people when making a film, and it's find a niche, okay? This world, the monoculture is gone. If you find a niche, a very passionate niche, you can use that as the foundation for your film. Their enthusiasm will be the bedrock of everything and filter out and attract other people who may not know about this niche, but get them kind of interested and excited. One other quick story tip. A lot of people think that if they're making a documentary, it has to have this big national or global story for people to care outside of their hometown, or for people to care across the country. Your story doesn't have to have national broad appeal. Your themes do. Just make sure that if your story is very niche and small, that the themes are big and universal, and that will attract people from all over the country and all over the world. Let's start at the beginning. Pre-production. Let me take you back to a much younger, more youthful Al. It was 10 years ago, the fall of 2015, and I was about to turn 30 years old. All of my filmmaking heroes had made their first feature film before they were 30. I'd always kind of said, well, I got to get the script right, or, oh, I got to find a budget or a crew, all the excuses that you come up with to not do something hard and difficult. I just kind of started to feel and hear this ticking clock. As you get older, you hear it louder and louder. Life becomes more precious. You lose people. Things happen. And I felt like, okay, I need to do this. I need to make a feature film. I've made a series of short documentaries, and the way I shoot them and the way I produce them is all by myself. I felt like, okay, can I take that model, that style, the way that I work, and extend it for an hour and a half? Another quick story tip is make sure you're selecting a story with a dramatic hook, something that will make people want to say, hey, I wonder what's going to happen next. Sometimes people just pick topics for documentaries. So I decided I was going to make a documentary about a drive-in. They only show 35 millimeter film prints They didn't upgrade to digital in 2014 when every theater was basically forced to because Hollywood stopped putting out 35 millimeter film prints for projection and moved to DCPs, which is digital. They can't afford a fancy new digital projector, so they're clinging to these old, original 1949 simplex E7 projectors and just screening old films on 35 millimeter film. So I have some kind of a dramatic hook. Will this drive-in be able to last and stay open, only showing 35 millimeter film? But I had no idea anything other than that. Fast forward to March 12th, 2016, and I find myself here on this lot at this drive-in theater, ready to shoot a feature film, no clue what I'm about to do or what I'm getting into. And all I had with me was this, the Canon C100 Mark II. The C100 Mark II only shoots in 1080 and 420 8-bit. So I'm sure a lot of you are going, but wait a minute, it's got to be 422 10. This is what I had. This was my setup. And I just had a shotgun right there, shotgun mic. And I would just walk around like this. The Canon 17 to 55 2.8, that was the lens I used the most. And it has image stabilization. It's a really good lens. It's not an L series lens. It's a step down, but it really has great optics. Then I use this lens, the 35 1.4 EF Mark I, a lens from the 90s. I also use the Canon 70 to 200 2.8. You'll see some drone shots in the film. Man, if I could go back and redo one thing, it would be those drone shots, because I was using a Phantom 2 with a GoPro on it. Then I ended up buying a Mavic, the original Mavic, and I got a few extra shots with that, and those ones look better. The Canon C100 Mark II has Canon log, the original Canon log, but I didn't use that. I ended up using wide DR. And if you've watched my videos, you know how much I love wide DR. So real quick, if you're not a wide hard, wide DR is a gamma curve that Canon offers in many of its cinema cameras. It's basically the original Canon log, but with a little bit of saturation and a little bit of contrast added. Not a lot, so it looks really good out of camera. It's very similar to Sony's S Cinetone, and I think it was a huge benefit for me and this movie, and here's why. So the C100, as I mentioned, only shoots in 420 8-bit HD. Had I shot in C-Log and then added a LUT and then tried to do some grading or make it look fancy, I think it would have fallen apart. I know it would have fallen apart. You would have seen artifacts. It would not have looked good. The fact that I was able to shoot in wide DR and leave it mostly untouched. I would say half of the movie is completely untouched. And because it was mostly left untouched, when we went to blow the film up, we actually had a DCP made for projection in a bunch of movie theaters that it screened in. It looked flawless. Every time you do something to an image, you're manipulating it and degrading it. So by limiting all of that, it remained flawlessly perfect on a big screen. So I want to touch on the shooting style of the film for a sec, because today's day and age, if you go on Netflix and you watch a documentary, they all look like Nike commercials, right? They're like super slick. My intention for this was to make it look elegant and beautiful, but simple. I wanted it to look like one of the crew members was filming this documentary themselves. So I did not light anything in this film. There was no interview, no scene, no moment where I added any extra lights. It just creates a more intimate feel, I think, because it doesn't seem fake, it doesn't seem staged, it seems real. Finding a subject, finding a story that could benefit from that more raw, organic cinematography could help keep production costs down and make it easier on you as a solo cinematographer. The biggest visual influence on this film was American Movie, a documentary from 1999 that gave the world Mark Borchardt. Thank you.
Coven sounds like oven, man, and that's just, it doesn't work.
It's important when you're going in to shoot something, especially a documentary, that you have a style in mind. Otherwise, you're going to start shooting all over the place. Your film is going to come together, and it's going to look weird. It's going to look wonky. It might not have a complete vision and style with it. So go in with a plan, but as always, be prepared to change that plan. So what was the shooting process like? I would basically come here not every weekend, but most weekends throughout the 2016 season. And every time I would come down, I would have a mission in mind. I would say, okay, this trip I'm going to focus on this person or this aspect of the drive-in. For example, the one weekend I knew they were going to get like no attendance because it was going to rain. So rain at a drive-in usually means people don't come because it's more of an outdoor experience. So with those two things in mind, I said, okay, great. I'm going to focus on what is the drive-in like when it's raining. What does the crew do? Do they still show the movie? Does anyone actually come? So the entire film was edited on a MacBook Pro in Final Cut Pro. I mentioned I would come down every weekend with a mission. I'm going to capture this, I'm going to capture that. So what I would do is then on Sunday, I would take all that footage, I would put it into a timeline, its own timeline. So every shoot day had its own timeline where I would just find my favorite moments, favorite shots. The further I got along, I could start saying, okay, these two can be combined, or I don't need that, or this stuff would go well with this theme that's emerging. So as I'm editing, I'm starting to figure out, okay, what is the story here? And what are the themes? What is this actually about? And once I kind of realized what I think the film is really about, I started to pick and choose moments and scenes and shots that supported that and really ran with that. My advice is don't just shoot everything and then start editing at the end. Because if you start editing while you go and you build these little, I don't want to call them scenes, but these little timelines of all the stuff you've shot, you can then look at things more easily. Instead of looking at thousands and thousands of shots and moments, you're looking at bigger blocks. It's like instead of looking at 10,000 strawberries, you're looking at 100 containers of strawberries instead. It's much easier. It's less daunting. And again, this is aimed at if you're editing this film yourself as well. This is total one-man band. So I didn't really do sit-down interviews with the Mahoning Drive-in crew and everyone until after the season to kind of build up and support the rough cut that I was putting together. I had a cut around May or June of 2017. I had a rough cut and I started showing it. I showed it to a few people that, one person I didn't really know at all. She directed a documentary that premiered at Slam Dance. And so I reached out to the director of that and asked her to watch the film, and she did, and she gave me notes, and I was very grateful for that. Working as a one-man band, you're going to lose context. You're going to lose perspective sometimes. So it was helpful to have other people. The music for the film was pretty much, I licensed music from MusicBed, which has very good high-quality music. It's very expensive, especially if you're making a feature film. I feel like it was like $700 or so. I can't remember. It was like a lot of money per track because I had to not just license it to use it in the film, but also in perpetuity. And I think I licensed a few from premiumbeat.com at the time. Yes, a composer would have been great, but being able to play with different pieces of music, I love that part of the editing process. I love playing with music and seeing, what works, what doesn't. And oftentimes music will ignite new ideas and completely alter and change scenes. So that's why I like a little more control over the music. Again, I've used a composer in the past. I would certainly do it again. The legal side of things, documentaries obviously have a different layer of legality to them. I did have everyone in the film sign a release form. I did have a lawyer look at the film and basically say, yeah, there's nothing There's nothing controversial in here. There's nothing copyright-wise to worry about in here. You have your subjects sign your release forms. You've licensed the music. Everything's good. And one other thing is archival footage. So in the beginning, you see a few news clips from WNEP, which is the Northeast Pennsylvania, like one of the Northeast Pennsylvania news stations, and they did some stories about the Mahoning, especially when they were like possibly going to close. And to license those, back then in 2016, they were independently owned at this time. I ended up getting those clips for, I think it was $300 a piece, which if you've licensed archival footage for a documentary or anything, you would know that that's an amazing price, because if I tried to do that today, now that they are owned by, I think, Tegna, a big corporate owner of local news, I'd probably pay $10,000 per clip. Keep that in mind. If you are going to license news clips, they are very expensive, unless you have a fair use way of using them. Now, I didn't have to claim fair use on anything, but if you do, there is a way to use copyrighted, licensed clips for free using fair use. If you set up the clip in a way where it's like, oh yeah, that one time you went on the Jimmy Kimmel show and said that, and then if you show a clip of it, you know, you set it up, you didn't alter the clip, you just used a few seconds, I think you can claim fair use on that. I've known people who've done that. So at the end of the day, this film cost me around $5,000, and I would just kind of pay as I went, and I put everything just on a credit card, and I would just pay for that with side jobs that I would do. So I made a list of film festivals where I wanted it to play and started submitting to film festivals. I had a clear goal in mind. I knew exactly where I wanted this film to premiere. I thought it was perfect for this film festival, the Slam Dance Film Festival, which is kind of like the younger cousin of the Sundance Film Festival. It really embodies what Sundance was and why it was founded. And it didn't get accepted. It got rejected from Slam Dance, and I remember being like crushed, because I felt like, oh man, that's where I wanted to premiere my film. You have to pivot, you move on, and literally got word that, oh, it's gonna play at the Philadelphia Film Festival. So that was great. That's probably the biggest film festival in Pennsylvania. I was excited about that. Then I got word it was gonna play at the Savannah Film Festival, a huge film festival down in Savannah, Georgia, where like celebrities go. I remember my screening of At the Drive-In was competing with Mariska Hargitay was there with a documentary as well, and hers was screening at the same time at some museum in Savannah. And I was nervous no one was going to come to mine. We ended up getting like 100-some people come. Had a great screening in my hometown at the Waverly Com. Want to shout them out. And it screened at a few Alamo Drafthouse theaters, Omaha. It played in Los Angeles at the Dances with Films Festival. If a film festival run is part of what you want to do, you have to budget for that, because film festival entry fees can add up. They average from about $50 to $100. I mean, there's ways to get cheaper ones, but $50 to $100 is probably the average. And if you're submitting to 10, 20 film festivals, that's going to add up. Distribution. The film did get distributed by MVD Entertainment. It's available on a whole bunch of AVOD, SVOD, or VOD platforms. Amazon, iTunes, Tubi, Canopy. It's on DVD. It's actually on the YouTube Movies and TV page. After going through this, I am a big proponent now of AVOD, which is advertising video on demand. That basically means you get paid based on views. That might not be the best option for every film. So just because your film is available for free doesn't mean it's not making money. It basically means you're getting paid per view because there's advertising based around it. So if you think you have something that people will want to watch, don't overlook AVOD, because I'm still 6.5 years later getting pretty decent royalty checks every month for all of the views and the purchases and everything of the film online. So I started this by telling you I have a theory and some thoughts about why I think this film did find an audience. My theory has to do with a very controversial opinion from one of the most famous filmmakers in the world. And that filmmaker was Charles Chaplin. In 1954, Charlie Chaplin gave an interview on BBC Radio, and he said something that really surprised me. When people talk about movies and what makes a movie last, what connects people, what is the number one most important thing about movies? And that is story, 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 right? Everyone says story is king. Everything has to do with the story. Is it a good story? And Chaplin's perspective was different.
Nothing can transcend human personality. You know, a story is all secondary, is purely a background in which this precious thing called personality functions. That's my belief. That's my concept of pictures. The idea of getting somebody that has personality, distinction, somebody that the people can look at and identify themselves with.
He was challenged on this take, and his rebuttal was,
As you said yourself, it's all for the purpose of exploiting that personality. That's all. That's what a story does. In other words, the story is the framework in order to bring out and make luminous the personality.
And when I heard that, it just made me think of this film. There is a story to At the Drive-In, but it's really about these people. You really get to know them and hang out with them. I often described it as it's like a hangout movie. You're hanging out with these people at a drive-in. And I think that's the major reason why this found an audience. I think it's these people. Chaplin basically predicted YouTube. That's why you subscribe to the people you subscribe to. So I just want to kind of leave you with this. Again, I shot this film back in 2016. It's been almost 10 years now, and it's difficult for me to actually watch this movie. There's a lot of memories tied up in it. A lot of things were going on in my life. I got married during the production. I spent so much time with these guys, and when I watch this, it's like looking at an old scrapbook. Some of these guys, I still talk to them. Some I don't, and some, unfortunately, I'll never have the chance to talk to them again. It really was a collaboration. It wasn't a solo project. I actually leaned on these guys, and that's my advice to you is don't be afraid to get close to your subject, because they can help you, and you can form a bond, and I certainly feel like I did. That's what filmmaking is. It's an intense collaboration, and then a memory that hopefully can last forever. So go make your memory now. And don't let anyone tell you that you need a certain spec, that you need 422 10-bit, or this camera. So I guess you just need two things to make a movie: passion and personality. It's better to make a shitty movie than to never make a movie at all. And that's what I'll say. But, as I said, I started making this film because I was about to turn 30. I was 29. I wanted to take a chance and do something and finally make a feature film. And now, 10 years later, I'm about to turn 40. And, well, I guess we'll see. I kind of feel like Tom Hanks at the end of Castaway. Still got the C-100, though.